I would like to address the process of the Tredyffrin Township Supervisors Holiday Firefighters Fund Drive. The fund drive was announced on December 21st at the Board of Supervisors meeting with the presentation of the cardboard check that surprised me as many in the community. I understand that the significance of the $23,200 cardboard check as presented by Mr. Camp was to make up for the cut to the fire companies that had occurred as a result of the township's 2010 budget. I was surprised that three of the supervisors, Mr. Camp, Mr. Olson, and Mr. Lamina, had come up with this idea and with no discussion from the community were already out fundraising. It seemed unclear whether the other supervisors were aware or not of this venture. It was also unclear whether the fire companies had been counseled prior to the Supervisors Holiday Firefighters Fund Drive. I set aside my concerns and problems with the process until after the first quarter, which, as I understood it, would be the cutoff for the Supervisors Holiday Firefighters Fund Drive. We are now safely past the first quarter. The money has been collected and turned over to the Berwyn Fire Company, and I would like to address issues and concerns with the process. I would say at this point that my questions and concerns are only addressed to Supervisors Bob, Warren, Paul, and J.D. Phil, E.J., and Michelle were not on the Board of Supervisors in December 2009 when the fund drive began. To receive an official update from the Berwyn Fire Company, I contacted their president, Rip Tilden, asking 4 questions. Last week, I sent the following questions to Rip Tilden, president of Berwyn Fire Company, and copied the board on the email. 1, was the total amount received by Berwyn Fire Company as a result of the solicitation efforts of Supervisors Olson, Lamina, and Camp? 2, has Berwyn Fire Company distributed the money to Radnor and Paoli Fire Companies? 3, can you provide a complete list of donors, individuals, and corporate? 4, are there any contributions to the fire company that you cannot accept and therefore must return? Rip kindly supplied me with his detailed response, which I have added to Community Matters blog, which is pattyebenson.org, and I also sent you a copy. The total that was received from the Tredyffrin Township Supervisors Holiday Firefighters Fund Drive was $24,400. In response to my question for the list of donors, it was Mr. Tilden's suggestion that the information come from the solicitors, not the fire company, which would be the Tredyffrin Township Supervisors. When I sent you a copy of Mr. Tilden's response to my questions, I asked you to add this topic to the agenda, answer the questions, and suggested that the public should have a complete accounting of the Supervisors Fund Drive. An example from May 2008 and the Pitcairn Company. The same 4 supervisors, Warren, Bob, Paul, and J.D., were supervisors in 2008 and involved with the decision with Pitcairn, as was Mimi and Tom Hogan. For the benefit of the other supervisors and the public, I will briefly explain. I was in 2008 and still am president of Tredyffrin Historic Preservation Trust, a nonprofit 501c3 organization. Judy DiFilippo, who was supervisor at the time and also a trust board member, and myself attended a press party for the trust. At the party, I was approached by Tony Nochi, a vice president for Pitcairn Properties. We had information available at the party on the Jones Log Barn, and Mr. Nochi was extremely interested in the historic rebuilding project and asked detailed questions about the barn. I explained the background and the history of the project and that the barn was to be rebuilt in Wilson Farm Park. Mr. Nochi suggested to me that his company, Pitcairn, could help with the use of heavy equipment for grading, etc. He explained that his company would be building an office building in Chesterbrook, and if we could work out a schedule, the trust and Pitcairn, he'd have his guys bring the equipment over to do the grading, and would have some of his people add a few extra days of work at the end of their project to help the trust. This seemed unbelievable. I was delighted with this generous offer and truly excited about the possibility of some real help with the Jones Log Barn project in the form of an in-kind donation. Remember, I did not solicit Pitcairn's help. It was offered to me in the trust. I viewed the kind offer as just that, a kind offer of help and a gift valued at as much as $50,000. We used that offer in grant applications, pushed up the date for architectural drawings, etc., just to be able to accept this generous offer. About 6 weeks after the offer, Judy DiFilippo received word in an executive session of the Board of Supervisors that the trust would not be allowed to accept Pitcairn's in-kind offer. I feel comfortable reading this email from Judy because this is dated May 6, 2008, and it was sent to all 15 members of the board of directors of the trust. Dear trust board members, last evening in executive session, there was discussion about Pitcairn's offer to the trust. Some of you may know that the township is trying to negotiate an agreement with them relating to a new office building that they want to construct in Chesterbrook. The board was concerned that there was a perceived conflict of interest with their offer to grade and/or excavate the ground in Wilson Farm Park for the construction of the barn. What did they want in return for their offer? Asked the members of the Board of Supervisors. The idea was that, and then that's the end of that email, the idea was that there was a pay-to-play perception because of the final review of the land development project between the township and Pitcairn. Needless to say, I was very upset. I was not on the Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission, an elected official, and I was not allowed to accept this offer as president of the trust. Warren Camp was chair at the time and called me while he was on a business trip in California to discuss the board's decision. He was absolute that I would not accept this offer because this company was doing business with the township. I knew nothing about Pitcairn's Planning Commission review, yet I was not able to accept the offer. Fast forward 18 months from that May date of 2008 to December 2009, and the very same people who told me that I could not accept an offer with a company that was doing business in the township, even though I didn't know they were doing business in the township, goes out and solicits local companies. Mr. Camp read off a list of donors at the December 21st meeting of the cardboard check presentation that included Cafe Winberry's, Christopher's, Braxton's, Margaret Quo's, Fellini's, Comcast, Pico, Lamb Macrolane, Devon BMW, Devon Horse Show, Villanova University, Saw Ewing, Sloan Toyota, Ace Hardware, Aqua PA, Liberty Property Trust. I probably missed some. The way I see it, that the only difference between the Pitcairn trust situation and the fire company solicitation is that one was an in-kind offer and the other was a monetary contribution. Both could be perceived as benefiting the township. If a business that was solicited by the supervisors during the holiday fund drive were to have zoning, planning, development projects, contract negotiations, etc. with the township, the perception of pay-to-play would exist. This was the argument provided when I debated that the trust should be allowed to accept Pitcairn's offer. Conceptually, there is no difference between the situations. Comcast is currently negotiating a 15-year franchise agreement with the township, which expires in 2010. Lamb Macrolane is the township solicitor and has an agreement with the township, and they were solicited and I believe donated, at least that's what Warren Camp said. Aqua PA has a contract with the township, and Liberty Property Trust has an ongoing land development issues for the last decade over Church Road in the Great Valley. I'd like to reference the Home Rule Charter, Article 9, Section 902A, prohibited activities in conflict of interest. No elected or appointed official of the township shall engage in any activity or take any action by virtue of his official position from which activity or action the official or any other person or entity in whose welfare the official is interested shall benefit or realize a gain or advantage. Such benefit, gain, or advantage shall not, however, be construed to be prohibited if the action in question is in behalf of a group of citizens of the township and such benefit and relationship is generally known and acknowledged. 2, solicit or accept directly or indirectly any gift, favor, service, commission, or other consideration that might reasonably tend to influence that official in the discharge of the duties of office. 3, seek to influence, directly or indirectly, the awarding of any contract where such official is interested or would benefit directly, financially or otherwise, from said contract. Such action is not intended to apply to actions of a supervisor on behalf of a group or class of citizens of the township who would benefit from the contract, and such benefit and relationship is generally known and acknowledged. I'd like to understand why 4 supervisors in 2008 said that the Pitcairn's offer could be perceived as pay-to-play, but the same supervisors okay their own solicitation of local companies. This is not about the money that was raised for the fire companies. It's about the process that they used to raise the money, the source of the donations, and the encouragement donors may have received or felt in responding to the solicitation. Why are there different sets of rules applied? Same supervisors, different rules. Comments?